So, what is a patient gamer? Firstly, welcome. This is a warm, embracing hug from someone who pays the least and only plays the best titles. Sounds too good to be true. Well, it does come at a cost, the very uncool cost of patience. Please allow me to explain. To do so, I'm going to cover the concept and include some examples, how I came about it myself and the people I've met along the way, and then throw in some pros and cons too. Let's go. To summarize, the concept of patient gaming would be picking fruit when it's ripe, or if I was forced to use a less creepy statement, purchasing a game when its value has peaked. And much like your left elbow, value can be measured in more ways than one. But unlike your elbow, value is subjective. No one is denying the fact that you have a left elbow. Well, except if you don't, in which case you've probably suffered trauma and that person is most likely a doctor. Anyway, returning to value, the first component I'm referring to is the price, respecting the fact that a game steadily lowers in price after launch until such time it becomes considered a collector's item, and then it has the chance to rise to newfound heights and is purchased by people who have no intention of playing it but simply displaying it on a shelf. Beyond the price is the product itself. Gone are the days of single version launches. Back when a game was purchased, inserted using mild physical force, and then available to be played immediately. This foreign and elusive concept died with the internet. Yes, the service that provides instant access to the world has slowed us down in playing our new games, for there must always be an update. This evolution can be a blessing and a curse. These days, a game typically launches in a less than finished version compared with products released in the retro era. However, with the right developers, games can also be continually added to and improved upon, such that it becomes something infinitely better the months and years down the track. The most notable of these examples is No Man's Sky, which launched so far below its promised content that the developers received death threats. But despite this, they stuck at the game, updating it for years and turned it into something bigger and better than it was ever advertised to be. So in general, you now have a product that is lowering in price and yet improving over time. It's like holding onto your money you've saved for an apartment for a year or two and buying a 4-bedroom house instead. Beyond optimizing the value of the game, there's sifting through the information about it. It's difficult to get clear and unbiased opinions on a game at the point of release. The hype train is in full swing at this time. Reviewers are under pressure to get their reviews out at the time of release or shortly after. So they're not really in a position to tell you if the game will stand the test of time. How could they? They're often working with a buggy pre-release copy, and so they have to go between what they've experienced and what the developers and publishers are telling them the final release will be like.
It's fine! Everything is fine!
Marketing teams behind the big release titles are spending significant amounts of time, energy, and money to push this hype train along because they know that the release period is the most significant time in a game's existence. Add into this the fact that a large majority of the popular reviewers are paid to produce this material, and the material that makes money is generally covering the current release titles. Most gaming news and information is dedicated to this bleeding edge of releases. So, the loudest people at the party of gaming are covering the 0.1% of titles that are currently releasing, compared with the 99.9% of existing titles that could be better for the consumer in every way. It's no wonder the majority of gamers are constantly following the upcoming cycle of releases. But if you can step off the hype train, there's a whole world of games out there that you've never heard of, and that are probably perfect for you. It's just that they're not on this bleeding edge release hype train, so you have to do some digging to find them. The best place I can recommend to start that journey is through Patient Gamers. It's a hub of like-minded gamers who like to discuss games, analyze them, and encourage other gamers into playing titles that, despite having had their time in the sun, are still incredible experiences. Okay, so before I tell you about how I came to be a patient gamer, here's some concrete examples of what I'm talking about. Firstly, websites to use I will link in the description, but they include Is There Any Deal for PC and PS prices for consoles. You could pick up The Witcher 3 Game of the Year Edition with all DLC content, arguably the most successful game in the past 5 years, for $20. Or build your own city with Cities Skylines for $10. Fast-paced first-person shooter Doom Eternal is all the rage, but the previous version, which is reportedly better, can be found for only $7 on sale. This isn't to mention, Epic Games have been releasing some excellent content for free each week. GTA 5, Celeste, Hyper Light Drifter, and just this week, Civilization 6. Before I knew there was a place on the internet for people like me, I had already become a patient gamer. How? I had kids. You see, when you have kids, you learn two major things. Baby poo isn't actually that bad, but toddler poo definitely is, and your available time is no longer available.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
So you get little snapshots of games rather than entire weekends. You can't just be a gamer anymore, so your gaming habits have to change. Some of us stop playing games entirely, but we usually come back. And when we do, we need to get the most possible value out of it, both in terms of time and the cost, because we have kids, right? So, value in terms of time. You become a casual gamer. You can't commit to a game that requires constant attention. You need to be able to drop it for an entire week or more, and that not be a big deal. You can't spend hours at a time, so your appetite for titles might have to shift. You also can't afford to play bad games. You only have so much time, so to scratch that itch, you need to play excellent games. So you watch reviews, you read up often at your white-collar job because, well, adulting, and you find better and more considered information on games that have well and truly matured. If the game is good, it's going to have a significant following, even years after its release. This is a good sign. Secondly, you measure value in terms of cost. You need to spend as little as possible on games, which actually works quite well because there's probably a stack of titles that you've missed out on since your parenting hiatus. And you notice they've dropped in price and you pick them up for 75% off and you realise they're more complete as well. And you have this epiphany. Why don't I always buy games after 12 to 18 months of release? So you start talking to your mate about Assassin's Creed Origins and how you just started playing it, and he laughs at you and says, "Mate, that game is 2 Assassin's Creeds ago, and the only cool one now is Valhalla and it's not even out yet." It's at that point you realise you're no longer cool, but then you don't actually care because parenting is the slow process of becoming uncool until you're in Sneens at a friend's 40th birthday talking about your investment property. So instead you log on to Patient Gamers and tell them about Assassin's Creed Origins, and you have engaging and encouraging conversations about it, and your faith in humanity is restored. Okay, so lastly, for those of you who like to dislike, I have your counter-arguments all ready to go. FOMO. I don't want to be a patient gamer because I don't want to miss out on what's current or what's happening. This is the major reason, and this is what game marketing and arguably gaming journalists tap into. Your fear of missing out on what's the latest, so that you can be a part of internet culture. And if this is true for you, then there's not much to say to convince you otherwise, because you'll always be looking over your shoulder at that AAA release that just launched and is all over your Twitter feed. My only compromise to this is if you wish to remain patient, but also get your fix of current games, is to jump into the free-to-play titles when they come out. Fortnite, whilst not new, was always free-to-play, along with Apex Legends, Dota 2, Gwent, and the very soon to release Valorant. You can play these, be part of the conversation, and then spend your money on matured content to scratch the other itches. Obviously, spending money on cosmetic upgrades in those games would start to unwind your progress, but that's another can of worms right there. The other counter-argument is you need to support the developers. I think there's two sides to this. Yes, there are the developers out there that are small enough who are releasing a game because they need to eat. These are the 1% of gaming purchases though, and to them I will gladly hand over my money for a game I'm interested in to support them. However, the majority of the money is being spent on AAA titles that have developers that can and will survive until you buy the game later. It could be said patient gamers are the ones that serve to define a game's ultimate success. If a game is actually good, then patient gamers will pick it up and carry it through for its remaining years. If the game is trash, it will only get carried through launch with all of its pre-orders and then cease to exist. Firstly, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to my subscribers. You guys are currently 1 in 175 million, so that makes you pretty special. Very grateful for you, and hope you're enjoying the channel. This is just a little bit about how I choose to play the games that I play. It might explain a little bit why my channel reviews games that are a little bit older, and I hope you got something out of it. But if you have a different idea on how games should be purchased, please do let me know in the comments. If you're new to the channel, it'd be fantastic if you would subscribe. The other thing you can do to really help me is to share this video with somebody who you think might enjoy it. I very much appreciate you making it all the way to the end. Be good to your friends and family. Ciao.